From the reports we have received from our field officers who were monitoring, there were no armed security personnel at any of the 137 polling stations.
There are also reports of intimidating presence of certain masked men in black and brown uniform who were wielding arms in some of the polling stations. Are you aware?
There were no masked men who were wielding arms in any of the 137 polling stations. All our reports that have come in and the monitors who have monitored, including members of the commission, did not identify any of these armed masked men at any of the 137 polling stations.
Are you saying that you have actually investigated and you can confirm that
Yes.
of a truth there were no masked men at any of the polling stations? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Now, you said you have cited the Codeo report.
Yes.
That report makes it very clear that there were masked armed men at some polling stations. What do you have to say about that?
I still stand by, the reports we have received that there were no masked armed men at any of the polling stations.
To the best of your knowledge, how many men of the security task force were kept in each polling station?
Well, usually you would find about 3 to 4 policemen, and then you could also find about, in some polling stations you would find about, 3 or 4, staff from the Ghana Immigration Service. And in a few polling stations that we went to, not all, maybe 1 or 2 gentlemen who had a T-shirt on and a badge saying National Security, NSC, on the badges.
Now, it is alleged that you had intimidating presence of heavily armed officers at some polling stations. What do you have to say?
That is not true. There were no armed policemen at any of the polling stations. Indeed, I had the opportunity to visit about 15 polling stations in the airport residential area in Jowulu, and there were no armed men at any of the polling stations. The commissioners have also come back to report. They were littered all across the country, and a staff strength of close to 30 monitoring on the field from the start of the polls to the end of the polls, all the way through the collation at the Legon cafeteria. And there were no armed men. Nobody has reported the presence of intimidating armed men at any of the polling stations.
As a follow-up to that, the Codeo report, which you have cited, states that in some polling stations, there were not less than 5 uniformed security personnel, and in some cases, as high as 15. What do you have to say about that?
Yes, as I mentioned, I went to a number of polling stations, and you would find 4 policemen and some officers from the immigration. So, this, and then 1 or 2 from national security. But I didn't cite, and I haven't received reports of only policemen, of policemen numbering as high as 15. As high as 15. You would find 4 or 5 police officers, 4 or 5 immigration officers, and 1 or 2 officers from the national security. But in all the polling stations that I visited, I didn't see, 15, police officers. And we haven't received reports to that effect.